Hi there, welcome to another JennyCam video, and we're going to be doing a few questions and answers here today. These seem to go down really well before, and we've just seen the final episode of Biggest Little Railway go out on Channel 4 on Sunday just gone. So it's kind of been bringing up a few questions I keep getting asked, so I thought I'd go through a few more of these. So I've got my list, and without further ado, let's get on with this thing. Well, episode 5's just gone out on Channel 4, so we've got a conclusion. I can talk about so much more stuff and share with you some photographs as well, and also some behind the scenes footage. But without further ado, let's have a look at what the list says. Now, number 1, did the train really travel on all the track? Quite an easy one to answer. Yes, it did. Even the bits which weren't filmed, well, they were filmed, but because there was so much stuff, Channel 4 really could have cranked out a 13-part series, no problems whatsoever, and it wouldn't have been padding. There really was so much interesting stuff that went on, the things that were built, the train running on it, and all the little side things as well. I've seen some of the unused footage, some of it leaked out in a Sky Vision trailer, and that they filmed at the Forth Bridge. They filmed at Hadrian's workshop. I think they also filmed a little bit at Roundhouse in Doncaster. I've certainly seen a little bit of Claire Barrett doing a piece to camera on the telephone, talking about that she'd found the perfect locomotive to run on the track, and that didn't actually seem to feature in the transmitted programme. So there's so much stuff, but right down there at the bottom of it all, the train really did traverse all of that track. So all the jeopardy that Dick kept going on about, oh, are we going to make it? That did actually go on. Why no backstory for you? Well, for me. They filmed backstory for quite a few people, and really just for time reasons. They didn't show everybody's. Mine didn't really get shown. You saw a few little bits back in episode 1. So you saw me climb into my shed, and it's one of those things. I was told, oh, don't worry, we're not filming this. As I said, oh, it's going to look hideous. It's going to be my big fat bottom as I crawl in here. So, oh, don't worry, we're not filming this. And then I watched episode 1. And yes, they were filming this, and they did make the cut. So you saw a few little snippets there, but I've actually got some behind-the-scenes footage of that day, and because it was filmed on the Garden Railway as well, and we just happened to have a camera covering all of that. There's no sound, but you can see some of what didn't make the cut being filmed, if that makes sense. And you can also see the trains going round. I actually cleaned off and got running the whole Garden Railway, and then we filmed a load of stuff indoors as well, so there's a lot of stuff about my writing. I know it did get edited up, so it's probably in the long version that was then trimmed for time, but I've been sent some screen grabs to do with photographs that were used in it, so I've got those hanging about as well, but everything else disappears into the ether because there's so much stuff to fit into 5 episodes. Did you have any involvement in the special build projects? Well, these would be principally the big bridges. So the viaduct across the spillway, the Lagan-Locks Truss Bridge, the Inchnicardin trestle, the Wild West style trestle, and also the Helix in Inverness. Short answer, no, I had nothing to do with the building of any of those projects. And in fact, actually, the only one of those that I saw in the flesh being built was the Inchnicardin trestle, which I actually likened to Bella Viaduct. And there's a piece of footage that was filmed. They wanted to get the reaction of people who hadn't seen it coming together, seeing it for the first time. So Team D, that I was the leader of, we actually built the section of track leading right up to the start of that bridge. That's where we got to in Fort Augustus. So we laid into Fort Augustus, through Fort Augustus. They showed a little tiny bit of that with Ollie Turner. going through, laying it actually in the roads. But then we built to that point, and I remember walking through the gate where Team C had set up their kind of encampment, and I was told, we need to film your reaction, just go in there, there's something special in there, we need to film your reaction. And I actually did get a photograph, so one of my few photographs is what I initially saw, and they did pose for the camera. There's Andrew Christie there, great lad, and their camera crew, and it blew me away. And I think I did say something along the lines of, I think I'm going to need a moment here with this engineering porn. It reminded me a lot of Bella Vita, which actually prior to no, I'll come back to that later because I know there's a question covering that later on. But no, short story. We weren't involved in building any of those. Each of the build teams did get their own little mini special build project. So Team A got the Invermorriston winch. Team B did the ferry at the very, very beginning on the first day. So they were actually the first group who got to build theirs, and they did that train ferry, but it didn't work. Magic of television. It took until the third take, I'm told, for it not to work properly. Then Team C did the funicular, which is actually, it's not really apparent in the finished programme, but Team C's funicular was immediately off the end of that Inchnacardian trestle. It came over that S-bend, over the stream, and then immediately was at the bottom of that incline. And I know there's some criticism in the programme about Hadrian going, oh, they've put all these turntables in and they're over-engineering it. Well, that was a little bit unfair on Paul and Team C, because I happen to know, because we all got the same brief, that we had to keep the footpath open at all times, and that meant that you had to build to the side, even if it involved extra corners, stuff like that. That's what they told us. So Team C built it perfectly to the brief. They were told specifically keep the path clear for walkers, because they kept coming through, and they did that. And then Hadrian and Dick filmed this big piece of taking it out, straight lining everything. Well, they kind of hogged the path to do that, which was precisely what the build teams were told not to do. So just clearing up a little thing there. Big out to Paul Burkett-Gray, great lad. He was, impeccable, but that little bit there, it didn't quite show off the team leader briefing where we were told to keep the path clear. Our special build project, we did the rack railway at the end, and that was hell. Found out super glue doesn't set when the temperature goes really, really cold, and it did. We actually reached a point where the super glue wouldn't set. It does, however, go off with damp, so it was getting, it was very humid. There was mist coming through the hills. And some of the bolts of super glue actually went completely solid inside the tube. So we were really bogged down. And all we had, as Dick explained in the programme, was a little gear wheel. We'd never really been explained. And this is something I'll touch on later on in one of the other questions. It wasn't really fully explained to us. We just turned up. We had all these strips of wood in the minibus and this little bag of, it looked like, the best way I can describe it is that slightly rubbery toothed strip that you see inside old flatbed scanners that pulls the tray backwards and forwards on a gear wheel. That's what the stuff actually was. But when they'd done their measurements, I think what had probably happened is that there'd been a miscommunication somewhere. So the wood had been perfectly cut to the height they needed to mesh with the gear wheel, and somebody had forgotten the thickness of the toothed strip. So when they came to run the train on it, it was too high. And really, given that we were doing kind of bush tucker engineering out in the wild, it was a very, very ambitious thing. So in the end, they had to improvise, which was a shame given that. When that bit that was shown, say that, they're downing tools and they're walking out, that came quite late in the day when we were suffering from the effects of cold and wet, and we'd been on that mountainside, about 12, 13 hours, something like that. So I hope somebody told Dick that actually we didn't just go, oh, we're not doing this because we're a little bit wet. And we actually did work until the super glue stopped setting because it got so cold, and we just couldn't carry on. There was people who were suffering the effects of the cold, and because of the wet, it really was super slippery. So the bit that I delivered to camera about it being really dangerous, and I think Mark Lee as well, dropping the box, you know, it was dangerous, really was dangerous. So, you know, the magic of TV, the cold and the wet doesn't really come across quite as intensively as it was there. So question 4, why didn't the White Railway work? Well, I've just answered that. Wasn't really our fault. Actually, it was nicely edited in a way that it didn't really heap all the blame on us. It was nothing to do with us. We built with the materials we were given. How much did you know about what you would be doing in advance? Was it scripted? We knew almost nothing in advance. Each day, we just took each day as it came. We got a leaders team briefing. Very little of that. It's quite a lot of the footage that's disappeared. There are some really nice photographs knocking about from various people that I was given permission to use in some magazine articles for publication, and going to chuck in a couple here. So big thanks to Les Cliff, Rod Nipper, who took a lot of these pictures, because I didn't actually take an awful lot, so I'm really reliant on some of these other people being really generous with letting me use their photographs to actually have any kind of a record of something. But we did a team leaders briefing every single morning, and we were told then what we were building, where we were building it. And whilst we did know before we went to Scotland we were building on the Great Glen Way, unless you were really familiar with the Great Glen Way, it's very difficult to actually really quite know where we would be building. Was it scripted? No. They kind of didn't tell us a lot of what was going on behind the scenes, because they wanted to kind of get this more spontaneous reaction from the people building things. And I guess if they'd have told us a lot more about what was being planned, it wouldn't have had that kind of peril, will they, won't they, edge of the seat stuff, which was what they really wanted. So we were, for very good reasons, kept a lot in the dark. And actually, I think it worked really well doing it that way. There wasn't a script. You know, Dick and Claire and possibly Hadrian as well may well have had you know, things that they needed to say, sort of a loose script, a bit like, you know, I've seen Time Team get filmed, and Tony Robinson had a script in that. So, you know, there was an element of what they needed the presenters to say to get this coherent story for the editing room. But we didn't get that. Do you have any behind the scenes footage? I don't know, because I stupidly thought, well, we're going to be really busy building this thing. I'm going to have time to take pictures, and maybe they won't like us taking pictures behind the scenes. So I took, for reasons known only to myself about a year previously, I took a really old digital camera, and it could take video film, but it's like cine film, and it probably, when I see it on the big screen now, it's going to look grainy as anything. So there's a couple of bits that I took on the banks of Loch Lochy. We built, you do see in the programme actually, the train going across this bridge across the stream, and we actually filmed a huge piece with Dick Strawbridge turned up, and we filmed a big piece on the banks of Loch Lochy. And I think the only bit of that survives is the bit where he is walking wistfully along the shingle beach on Loch Lochy. And what you don't actually see, it looks like he's in this perfect wilderness, but behind the camera there's the entirety of Team D watching on. But I did take a little bit of cine film footage of that bridge, so you can see it, and it was genius. It was our moment to shine that wasn't really intended to be our moment to shine, because some of the people in Team D decided, and really good on, kudos on them for doing this, that we could cut out a lot of corners. This became our thing. In many ways, we were too efficient to feature too much on TV, which is why we kind of get cut a little bit from episodes 2, 3 and 4. We didn't have too much drama because we found ways of cutting the corners in an engineering solution kind of way, and that bridge was one of them. And it meant that we didn't have to do 2 big dog legs over a footbridge, changing gradient, all sorts of horrible things, just to use the footbridge that the Great Glen Way follows. So we built our own bridge. And all of the stuff we filmed with Dick Strawbridge with that, unfortunately, seems to have gone on the cutting room floor. What else have I got? Well, there's a few photographs that people took that was on the campsite. Les Cliff took a few shots of the team leader briefings that happened at Fort Augustus, and I really like these shots. Rod Nipper took a few as well, and I like these because they kind of show me in the thick of this TV action. And when you see it on TV, not that they showed an awful lot. I think they show a few close-ups of faces, very Sergio Leone. You get the faces and expressions. But there was like several different cameras, and you obviously don't see all the TV people when you see it on TV. You just see us. So these I like because they kind of put it into context what we were doing. Didn't you all just stay in 5-star hotels and not rough it in tents? Was that all just for the cameras? Well, you can take it from me that we slept in those tents, and you do see them in some of the campsite footage. We really did stay in those tents. The only thing that we didn't have to do was the demontage. They had a separate crew who, whilst we were out building, when it came for campsite move time, you just put all your gear in a big bag, left it in the kind of middle bit of the tent, and it all got shipped on to the next campsite. So when you came back from the build and the campsite had moved, you just got taken to the next campsite, and there was a big pile of gear, and you fished yours out, and then there was the mad scramble to try and make sure that you didn't get the one tent that everybody in the last campsite went, "It leaks, there's a hole in it." So that's what we tried to do, and we actually tried to keep the same group of 4 people in our tent, and I think most of the other people went for the same thing. You kind of had this sort of tent camaraderie as well as your team camaraderie. And in my tent I had, there was Jill, Pip and Maggie, and we kind of kept that thing going, and it was nice to have the familiar faces. But sleeping on the ground, I think the only decent night's sleep I got was after the bit with where my ankles swelled up. The problem, which was actually giant hogweed poisoning. It was like it had liquid leached in, water leached in through everything. Your feet got wet, whether your boots were good or not. And this lower level exposure made ankles and lower leg all swell up like a balloon. I was like the Michelin Man. And I ended up getting taken to hospital. And they put me up in a hotel that one night. And I'll be honest, it was worth being in agony just to sleep in a proper bed that night and have a bath. But other than that, we were all roughing it on the campsite, and actually even the embedded runners were in the tents as well, because the Great Glen, Loch Ness, in the height of summer, filmed over end of June into 1st of July, where are you going to get 170 hotel rooms for everybody? You just can't do that. There just physically isn't enough hotel rooms there. So no, we really did rough it, and there's a few behind the scenes photos that show us all bleary-eyed in the morning, actually having our breakfast out in the rain. Did I get to hang out with Dick Strawbridge? A little bit. He didn't stay at the campsite with us. You wouldn't expect him to. But he was around a lot, and he's a lovely, lovely bloke, I must admit. I've seen him on TV before. I grew up watching Scrap Heap Challenge, and to actually meet him in person, he is top bloke. He is lovely. There's, no bad words I can say about him. And I'm a little bit annoyed, actually, in a way. I've seen written online some nasty comments made about him from people who were not on the film shoot and haven't worked with him, and it really does annoy me that people badmouth people like Dick Strawbridge without having ever met him. And he's a great bloke, and there were moments where we got to just sort of chill and hang out with him. When he came to film a piece on the banks of Loch Lochy to see that bridge that didn't make the cut, he kind of hung out with us, shot the breeze. And he actually gave me a lift in his the pickup truck that they'd let him use for the production, and I got to have a really good, thoroughly chat with him. And then when we were filming the leaders team briefings, in between the cameras rolling, you just got to shoot the breeze with him. And, you know, he'd tell you all these funny stories. He'd show you the photographs of the chateau on his smartphone. And he was just really, really open and accessible. And, you know, really enjoyed my time working with him. And really do hope that maybe sometime in the future, another project might come up. And I have the honour to work with Dick again, because thoroughly top bloke. Final question, is there going to be a series 2? Now everybody asks this, everybody's been asking this pretty much since the start of the series. And I don't know why are you asking me? Why do you think that I know? You know, I'm just really happy that they invited me to be a part of series 1. And what I've been told is that the final decision on a series 2 is entirely up to Channel 4. It depends on so many things, most notably the ratings. I think they take about a month to decide on how many people actually watched each episode, because the way people consume TV now, yeah, a lot of people watch it live, but then an awful lot of people watch it over the following month on catch-up, and I think it's on there for 30 days. So the final viewing figures won't be truly known for another month. But hopefully there are contingency plans, as far as I know, for a second series, you know, because you'd be foolish if you didn't. I think with all these things, regardless of what they are, they always have in the back of their mind, what if they commission us for series 2? What are we going to do? So there will be a group of people somewhere in a darkened office deep down in Holborn in London, working out, like, spitballing rough ideas. But as to what I know about it, that's pretty much all that I know about it. Would I be asked back if there was a series 2? I don't know. You'd have to ask somebody else, because I don't get to make that decision. I suppose it depends on a whole host of things, including whether, you know, if buts, maybes, if Channel 4 commissioned a second series, would they want a clean sweep on personnel and have all new people? I don't know. Would they want us back? I don't know. Did I annoy too many people by being me? I don't know. So, you know, watch this space. And, you know, if I ever know, I will tell you. Unless they tell me not to. Maybe they already did tell me not to. You won't tell anybody, will you? Yeah? It's just between me and you. And you. And yeah, you at the back. What are you doing at the back? Have you been paying attention at all through this video? You've just been sat talking all the way through. And everybody else, why do you talk through my video? Do you not enjoy? If you don't enjoy this video, why are you watching? What do you mean you're doing your homework and you're leaving something on in the background? What do you do? Oh. Well, at the very least, I don't know, just keep it down. There's other people trying to listen to this crap that I'm spouting. Anyway, that's all the questions that I've really got time for here. And I'm sure I'll do some more of these. Actually, they've gone down reasonably popularly. And one of the big things that we've set up recently is we started a Patreon page to support the channel. And one of the things that that gives the option is you can ask me questions that I will then endeavour to try and answer in future upcoming JennyCam videos, where I do question and answer sessions, a bit like this. So it's well worth it. If you've got some burning questions that you want to ask, that really is the best way to get those questions to me in a form that I will answer in a future video. But until next time, we've got no more time, unfortunately. I hope this video has been pretty informative to you. Hope it shed a little spotlight on what I did for my summer, last summer. And could finally talk a lot more about it now that it's all been transmitted. So I hope you enjoyed The Biggest Little Railway, and I hope you enjoyed this video. But until next time, this is me, Jenny Kirk, saying it's been really good having you along for the ride. Don't forget to like this video and share it too, and also subscribe to the channel, and you'll be the first to know about new videos as and when they go up. But until next time, this is me, Jenny Kirk, saying bye for now. If you liked today's video, please consider checking out my Patreon page where you can help me to keep making the videos that you love. Thank you. Today's video has been brought to you by my books, Bringing Home the Stars, Twinkle Little Star, and also you can get the complete comic collections of All Over the House, Books 1, Books 2, and also the wacky zany Life of Knobty Mouse. Thanks, and catch you later.